Internet, I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
And this is Unpopular Culture, the only show that believes the final season of Quantum Leap would have been greatly improved by a pit stop into Bill Cosby. Anyway, today we're going to look at, oh boy, we're going to look at Pokemon Go, so if you're sick of your Facebook friends talking about this, skip over it, I don't give a fuck. Second, we're going to be talking about Star Trek Beyond. We've talked about it quite a bit, but this is actually a little bit different. Sulu. Turns out he's gay. Loves it in the pooper.
In canon, not the guy.
No. Well, the first guy, not the new guy. He just likes
right,
getting
the first
high.
guy was definitely gay. George Takei.
Yeah.
Super gay.
George Takei, if there was a king of the gays, he would be it.
Right. And then NPH would be his vizier.
Next, Rogue One finally had a poster come out, and they have sort of a sizzle reel. They released it after they finished shooting, so they're like, hey, check this out, or something. I don't know.
Sweet. Yeah. Sizzle reels are fun.
And then finally, Dan Harmon of Rick and Morty fame. He also did Community, all that jazz. He has a new show out, which is really good. I saw the first episode, and then the rest of them, and then Jake only saw the first one. We're going to talk about that a little bit, and probably D&D in general, because that's Jake's gig.
It's my gig?
It's your gig, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
That makes it sound more important to me than it is.
So, if you haven't been on the internet for the past week or so, you have not heard about Pokemon Go. If you have been on the internet, then you have been inundated with everyone talking about whether they love it or hate it or their opinions or if they caught a Charizard yet. So yeah, Jake, did you play Pokemon Go yet?
I did a little bit, and then I decided that I don't really care for it, and I got an emulator for Pokemon Emerald instead and played about 15 hours of that. So if you want to know where my life's at, it is I picked Trico, which is the only viable starting Pokemon in Emerald because this is my first foray into it, and I'm leveling them all up. I got like 5 Pokemon in level 20. Only have like 2 badges. This is going great.
I haven't played that one. I've only played Gen 1, and I've played the remake of that, but that's it. I've never played anything
I beat Gen 1, all of them, like red, blue, green, and yellow. I beat all of them at least 6 times.
You're
too many times.
Fucking loser, but all right.
I only had that game for Game Boy, like the big gray brick Game Boy. I was not a loved child.
You're not a loved adult either, but that's beside the point. Pokemon Go. If you don't actively know what it is, it's a augmented reality game in which you take your cell phone and you go to places, and it activates via GPS location. You can catch Pokemon. There are gyms that you can take over. It's a pretty shallow game, but it's a very popular game. So popular, in fact, it became the #1 downloaded app in the United States within a week. It beat fucking Farmville and Candy Crush and all that shit.
Is Farmville still popular?
No, not anymore. It hasn't been popular for a couple years, but it's just an example.
They made so much money over this last week. There's a number going around 9 billion, which is incorrect according to you. It's more of like a net worth projection sort of situation, I suppose.
It's Nintendo
based upon their stock rising.
Yeah, Nintendo stock went up roughly the last time I checked about 25%, which is huge. Usually,
that's insane.
If you don't know how stocks typically work for a company, if you announce something big, maybe if you're lucky, it'll go up 8 to 10%. Like, that's insane that it went up 25%.
This is a worldwide phenomenon, though. Like, the day it dropped, Twitter exploded, and all you're seeing are memes and pictures. Like, there's like cops playing with all sorts of people in the streets, just walking around. Like, businesses have had to change their plans based upon what Pokemon are inside their buildings. It's crazy. Now, there's some tinfoil hats out there though that think it's just a giant government conspiracy to geocache everything.
That's fucking stupid because Ingress, if you don't know what Ingress is, the company that made this Pokemon Go, they did a game prior to this called Ingress, which was very similar. In fact, they just imported all the GPS data from that, and that's why it was so instant and why there's so many Pokestops everywhere.
Wasn't that
already.
Just like you fought over spots, like you stopped?
Yeah, pretty much.
Here's a red thing and make it blue now.
Yeah.
It's like capture the flag.
Pretty much. Goddamn. It's funny how just a simple change in theme and a very, very simple gameplay additions can make something go from Ingress, which made almost no money, to this, which made, and I'm talking in microtransactions, this is actually cash, they made $14 million in the first week. That's
fucking crazy.
That's 4 times the amount of money Ingress made over the entire time it's been released. So, it's interesting study in how nostalgia, because let's be real, kids are playing it, and that's cool,
It's the original 151 too.
Right now, it is the original 150, but they're going to add in the rest as time goes on.
It's not 151. It's only 150.
Wait, is there Mewtwo in this?
Do they not have Mew and Mewtwo?
I think they do. I saw a Mew. I don't know if they have Mewtwo right now. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
But anyway,
he'll be a DLC for sure.
it's just interesting that the power of nostalgia can make a very simple game blow up like this.
Yeah.
People in the mid-20s, and I'm telling you, I went out my apartment complex, which I live in the middle of. It's kind of it's a town. But it's
I would
not,
say semi-suburban.
Yeah, it's not that many people here. But in my apartment complex, I saw people walking around doing it. My girlfriend and I went out to the mall, which we have the shittiest mall. There were people doing it there. There were people dropping lures, which is a thing that people drop, and you know, Pokemon will come to you. You know, and we drove around for a while finding Pokestops because they're so far apart we couldn't walk. Because, again, I'll talk about this in a minute, but there's art issues with the game. And we saw people biking, and you'd be like, hey, and be like, hey. And it's just kind of fun to go talk to people, you know, who have similar interests and are just out having a fun time doing little fun, stupid game. But
I did play it briefly, and I picked it up pretty quickly. It's simple. You start out, and but the servers had issues when I was playing, so it really turned me off. But basically, you walk around outside, and then every once in a while, there's going to be a Pokemon. It's basically a game that makes you walk, and that's a good thing. It's changing my buddy Randy's life, I think, but in a good way. Like it actually is. It does have a lot of positive aspects to it. People that are pretty antisocial are now finding outdoors aspects to their life and social things because you bond over this stupid thing, which is awesome. And there's a lot of hate right now for it, which I don't care about. Like, it's okay that you don't like Pokemon. Like, I'm not a big Pokemon Go fan. I played it a little bit, meh. But don't shit on things people like just for the sake of it. It seems weird.
Some people are always going to be contrarian. They're going to hate on something people like just so they feel different, and they feel like, I'm so special. I don't like all these things all these sheep do. Come on, it's a fun thing.
What's it like not liking things? Like, part of the reason this is so good to a lot of people is because you're walking outside, and you're interacting, you're interfacing, and making friends with real people in public spots within your community that you've discovered for the first time. It's really interesting. It's a neat social thing that's happening.
Yeah. Now
it really is. Like there are like people walking around in the middle of the night and like doing this shit and finding just like-minded people, like no threats. Like I would not be surprised if like violent statistics went down this week.
They might have. Too many gangbangers are out catching EVs, right. Man. Yeah.
Bloods and Crips just being like, yo, can I trade you Kadabra to make it an abracadabra? Does that work in that? I don't know.
Anyway, that being said, though, there are things that they need to fix very quickly if they want to keep this wave of popularity going. As of right now, as I said, the game's very shallow. You can catch Pokemon, you can take over gyms, but that's about it. The combat, when you do the gyms, is very simple. You just dodge and attack, which is fine for a game like this. But outside of the gyms, you can't really battle other trainers. They need to add battling as quickly as they possibly can. And I
didn't know that.
Yeah, and they need to add trading. Well, here's the thing, though. This game isn't even in 1.0 release yet. They released it kind of early because their early tests were really, really positive. So, well, it is good that it got out, and it is popular. If they don't update this quickly, people, especially the demographic that this was released for, the people who download apps and play this kind of stuff, they get bored really quickly. So if in the next...
GTA 5.
If in the next month, they don't add some stuff, even if they just trickle it out slowly over time... It's gonna die. And I mean, there'll always be a fan base, I'm sure, because Pokemon's huge. I love Pokemon, but even I, who love Pokemon, there are issues. There aren't enough Pokestops around me. There just aren't. I'd get out and walk, but it's legitimately like 3 to 5 miles to the first Pokestop, and then like 5... there needs to be at least one per mile or something like that.
Mine are better, because I live in a not a metropolitan area, but it's a pretty, it's a very populated area. Yeah, so I have plenty of stuff, but I don't play it as much, so you should move here, but to play Pokemon. But yeah, no, I'm hearing a lot of problems with the rural areas.
Yeah, they just added, actually, I think it was like yesterday, I read an article, they added a thing on their website where you can now request places to put them. You take your own picture, you put a GPS location, they'll review it, which will hopefully solve some of the issues. But
couldn't you just look at a heat map where people are playing and?
You'd think so, but they also still need to get a picture and a description of what it is, and it's easier to crowdsource that stuff. Also, the surfers are a huge issue, but that'll take care of itself as more and more players drop off. It's already been pretty reliable for me since the first 2 days. I get occasional shit, but it's, for the most part, pretty fine.
Sure. I had problems just getting a name going.
Yeah, it was pain, and at the first it was a total pain. It wasn't working at all. That, and also there were server issues where stuff was freezing and you would lose Pokemon and items. And honestly, for that, I think what they need to do for the people who were there the first couple days, they need to give them some 15 free
like
Pokeballs or something.
Pack.
Just something to because it does have microtransactions, which I'm against for the most part. But in this game, I don't really care. I'm not one of those people who buys microtransactions. The thing is,
you can walk around and earn these things.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm just saying.
I'm okay with. You can be lazy and pay for it now, or you can work for it and buy that yourself. I'm totally fine with that brand of microtransaction. I'm not okay with pay to win.
Yeah. What else? Oh, they also announced that I guess stores and stuff are going to be able to pay to become Pokestops. So, like, if your local McDonald's wants to
They're going to make so much fucking money.
Yeah, it's... I'm on the fence about that because part of me wants to be a purist and say, like, oh, no, you shouldn't just use that. That's such a shallow, bullshit corporate way to make money. But at the same time...
The other part of me thinks if I'm selling, hamburgers, I'm doing that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. At the same time, like, I don't really care. Like, it's fine. I'd rather just have more Pokestops. I don't care if it's at a McDonald's or a Walgreens or a whatever.
Paying customers can catch Pokemon.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
Boom.
Overall, I actually think it's a neat idea. It did cash in on some nostalgia. It got me rethinking. I think I'm going to download the original Red, or maybe I'll get into the other ones I haven't played.
Do Emerald with me, bro.
Maybe. If anyone has like a favorite in the comments, your favorite Pokemon game, not a DS one though. It's got to be one I can emulate.
This is the one I hear best stuff on.
So, tell me in the comments.
I asked Randy, who is the Pokemon guy that I talked to. And he's like, yeah, this is the best one that's not the originals, which are the best. Just because I don't that nostalgia just cannot be replaced. Just can't. But there's enough of it in this version. They change enough of it to give you some new mechanics to play with. The Pokemon are obviously they're new, but they still sprinkle in enough of the originals to make you feel rooted in the world. And the towns are very similar.
Oh, that's cool. I don't know.
So it's interesting. Also, the music isn't far off.
Sure.
Like when you go to the Pokemon Center, it still goes dun 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 dun, and you're like, oh yeah, they're healed as fuck.
One day I want to do the DS ones, but I can't emulate them right now, so it's like whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I also saw a cool peripheral. It looks like there's a Pokeball peripheral.
I'm not sure what that does, but yeah, I've seen that too. I have no idea what the fuck it's for though. I guess I probably should have looked that up before we decided to record a thing on it, but fuck it.
Nah. I don't think it was even out yet, was it?
I don't know.
Like,
I've seen pictures. I've seen pictures of them, so I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, if you guys like Pokemon Go, let us know why you hate it. If you've played it, not just being a hater. If you played it and just genuinely don't like it, I want to know.
Oh yeah, it has problems. It's shallow. That's It's just a shallow.
Yeah. That's why it really didn't appeal to me. It was like, oh, you walk around and you catch Pokemon. What can you do with them? You can go and catch more if you want.
Yeah, and it's grindy.
And that's like the end of it. Yeah,
it's grindy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm good with that.
So, Star Trek Beyond, let's talk about that a little bit, or more specifically, it was announced that Sulu in this movie will be revealed to be a homosexual man.
Which I'm fine with. I don't care.
I don't care.
Like, I get it. It's kind of an homage to George Takei.
Which is funny because
who is actually gay.
It's funny, though, because George Takei is against this. He has said multiple...
You're saying Takei. It's Takei.
Sorry, George Takei has been outspoken in saying he's against them taking Sulu, who's an already established character, and making him gay.
It's an alternate universe, though. Things could have happened.
Which is... I get where... His argument was that it subverts Gene Roddenberry's original vision for the character. On the other hand, I would disagree. And you might say, well, he's the original character. Yeah, he's the actor. I respect him. He's a cool guy, but he didn't write the fucking character. I think it's more along the vision of Gene Roddenberry to say the crew, the entire intention on the bridge crew was you have a black one, you have an alien, you have Kirk, you have a Russian, you know what I mean? It was supposed to be diverse. It was showing that in the future, everyone's cool with pretty much everyone, and they just kind of work together. Now,
right, it was the homogeneity of society at that point, working towards the goal of exploration.
Right.
Which was neat.
And, of course, in the 60s, you couldn't have a gay character, so it wasn't his intention in the writing to make him gay. But I would argue, if it had happened today, do you really think he wouldn't have had a gay character there? Of course he would,
Right.
because that's a social issue of our time. It's just translating something to now. And
Well, yeah, I mean, and the fact that they make such a big deal about the overt sexualness of Captain Kirk,
right.
I think you could easily be like, yeah, Sulu is gay. What I want out of this isn't like a big deal. I don't want anyone to even bat an eye. I just wanted to like, oh, we gotta go? Okay, kisses his boyfriend goodbye, and then they walk away, and no one ever talks about it again.
Yep.
And that's all that needs to happen.
That's fine. I don't care. Because that's the thing, especially because it's in the 23rd century. Again, going with Gene Roddenberry. Did I say George Roddenberry? I'm a fucking idiot.
No, you didn't.
Oh, Gene.
You didn't. You said Gene.
Sorry. Gene Roddenberry's original vision. People in the 23rd century wouldn't give a fuck at all. It wouldn't even be a weird thing. So don't make a big deal out of it.
It's not a weird thing now.
No, I don't give a fuck. Now, I could see
Right.
people arguing it's just them trying to cash in on the new trend of like, hey, we're LGBT.
Dumbledore was gay.
Yeah, but it wasn't really like, in the books. That was something she said
Right.
later, but I don't know.
Which is fine. But that's what I mean. Like, it doesn't have to be broadcast. It's like no one. You just assume everyone's straight until it's otherwise. So why?
Well,
why in the 23rd century would it be like, oh yeah, he's not straight? That's odd. It wouldn't be.
George Takei. Did I say it right this time?
Takei.
Takei. Well, I don't know, man. George
Like
Takei.
decay.
Okay. Takei, his argument was that in the original canon, he was married and he had a daughter. I would argue
Sure.
it's not that much of a difference now. For one thing, I don't think we ever saw his wife on screen, just his daughter.
You could be married and still have a daughter in this scenario, by the way.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And I'm
Also, they're almost to the point where they can, right now, not in the 23rd century, where they can make two gay parents actual biological donors to their kid.
And
so I mean,
I'm sure in the Star Trek EU, there's at some point where you see his wife or something, but I don't give a fuck about the EU anyway. That's not the point. My point is that I don't really care either way, and I think anyone making a big deal out of it one way or another is kind of full of shit. Because who the fuck cares? Like,
yeah. I mean, the only person I understand George's apprehension because like he knew Gene, although Gene wasn't very popular back then. Like people really didn't care for him very much. They didn't like that one guy more though, the head writer. Later on, after what's his face died. But,
honestly, I'm gonna give you this. As much as I respect Gene Roddenberry for getting it started, Star Trek: The Next Generation didn't start getting good until he died. So
that's exactly the truth.
Just putting it out there.
Right.
Like,
no, I mean, it's just the truth.
It's like it's a George Lucas thing, except I don't hold contempt for Gene in any way.
It's like reverse George Lucas.
Sure, a little bit.
Because George started out good, although I'm pretty sure his wife at the time really helped that out. And then they just kind of like kept going, like, yeah, go and do what you want. I'm worried actually about the guy that does Game of Thrones for that very reason, George R.R. Martin.
J.R.
Because they're just
it is George. You're right.
George R.R. Martin. Yeah. They're just like, yeah, George, kill whoever the fuck you want. Who cares? And he's just gonna, turns into fucking death porn. But
he's not going to finish that last book. He's going to die, and then someone else will finish it. Like the writers again. I'm not even kidding. I genuinely think he's not going to finish that last book, and the writers of the Game of Thrones show are just going to have to make it up whenever they decide to.
They already are. They've lapped him, I think.
Didn't at the end of this season, or in this season 6
somewhere? Yeah, they passed him. But anyways, as far as the movie looks okay, I'm gonna go see it. My girlfriend's a fan of the Star Trek series, so yeah, I'm gonna go watch it, and it's probably not going to be anything crazy good, but I do like that they're on their 5-year mission.
Yeah, it's okay. So, I think it'll be all right. I liked the first Star Trek 2009 reboot. I thought it was okay, though it's obviously more of an action movie. Though a lot of the Star Trek movies, when you look at them, Wrath of Khan is an action movie. Don't be wrong, it has philosophical stuff in it. Don't give me shit like, Kirk's getting older, there's the whole rivalry. I get it, but let's be real, there's a lot of action in that movie, even if it was action by that time's standards.
I liked the last Star Trek. I like Cumberbatch.
Into Darkness was... I didn't hate it.
I think it had good nostalgia moments that they did well. It wasn't just for the sake of it, it seemed.
No, see, I thought it was totally for the sake of it. Actually, it's actually kind of funny. What I thought worked okay in The Force Awakens, where they literally took episode 4 and just changed it. They did the same thing in the second Star Trek and just did Wrath of Khan, but changed it. And I didn't like it as much, so...
That's weird. Grody.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't know a whole lot more to say about that. I'm more excited for the TV show, if I'm being real honest. So.
Yeah, except that's on like Hulu or something.
It's on CBS All Access or
worse.
something.
Yeah.
It's their streaming service.
It's
okay.
Ugh.
I'll get on my my pirate ship and get you a copy. Yar.
Yar, me matey. So next up, what do we have?
Rogue One.
Oh, Rogue One. That looks cool. I like the poster.
Yeah, it's cool. If you haven't seen it, it's basically a landscape, and then on the horizon you can see the Death Star, which is so close to this planet. It looks huge. So that's kind of neat. Although I don't think that'll happen in the movie, because I guess Star Wars, has never been big on physics, but even that'd be a little too far for them with how close it was. They did kind of they called it like a victory reel or something, but it's just a reel of action, them shooting the movie, and it looks pretty good. There's supposedly, I think, actually an actual trailer that's supposed to come out like tonight, so we're not going to be able to talk about it until next week. But what I saw looked good. The shooting looked interesting again, very much like in Episode 7. It's practical, lots of practical effects. The stuff is actually there. They're on real sets. There's new creatures. There's old creatures, actually, because if you don't know, this is a prequel. Again, it takes place right before Episode 4. So you had some of the same robot designs and stuff, and that's kind of neat. Remember it's kind of like a C-3PO, but it's got kind of a bug head.
Yes.
That was
in Force Awakens.
Oh, was it?
Wasn't it?
It might have been.
Wasn't it the one with the microphone mouth? It looks like a walkie-talkie mouth.
No, that's a different one. But
is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. It looks good. Again, don't have a lot to say about it, but the action looks good. That blind guy who knows Kung Fu, I think he was in IP Man, it's called, or Ip Man. I guess I don't know what it is.
Ip Man.
Ip Man, is it? Okay. I haven't seen that movie, but I've heard it's great, and I'm excited to see sort of martial arts in a Star Wars context. That's a neat way to take it. The war movie aesthetic seems to remain, even though they did the reshoots. And yes, we did that episode where we said 40% reshoots or something like that. That was a rumor. It turned out to be false, by the way. If we ever say...
How much was it?
It wasn't. It was just typical reshoots. It wasn't anything, like, huge. By the way, I should bring this up now. If we ever say anything that's, like, false on here, you could assume everything we say is based on rumors and reports that we read. It's not like we're talking to people directly, so take everything we ever say with a grain of salt. So now you should
Actually, I talk to George Lucas every day.
Yeah, which is funny because he has nothing to do with this movie, so he is probably as much speculating as we are.
All he does is he sits on the other end of the phone, breathes heavy, and sometimes cries while eating peanut butter cups. You know what's funny about that joke? It sounds like something George Lucas would do while talking to someone.
It kind of does. Poor George. I have we've talked about George Lucas before, but I have weird feelings on him. It's a dual feelings. On one hand, I feel really bad for him, but on the other hand, you're the richest motherfucker in sci-fi, and also you're kind of an asshole. So
he's very much an asshole. Like, I totally understand. Like, you cannot refuse him the respect that he deserves for the original trilogy and the universe that he has built therein. You cannot take that away from him. He's given us one of the coolest, easily the most iconic, probably, thing, besides, like, Coca-Cola and McDonald's. It's Star Wars is right up there. Lightsabers and Darth Vader and all that. No, I think globally you recognize that, right?
Sure.
No matter where you're at.
He's never given us the best. The only point in time where he had given us the best of the series was right after the first one. And then the second one came out, and he didn't even direct that one. Did he write that one? I don't know. I think he had...
Yeah, he's writing credits on all those.
But I don't know if he's like the sole writer.
It's his brainchild. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's his universe. He created the stories. It's more a fantasy romp in a sci-fi setting than it is a sci-fi movie.
Right.
Which is why we appreciate it. However, he deserves every bit of criticism he gets for the prequels.
Yes, he does.
Every single bit. And he deserves every single bit of criticism he gets in regards to the marketing and the, I mean, blatant... It's not racism, but it's something akin to that when he talks of, like, his aliens, like, these ones are the Jamaican ones. These ones are the Jews. Come on, George.
Okay. In fairness, okay, this is an old trope, especially in fantasy.
I know.
This is in Star Trek, too, with Quark and his whole species. I forget what the fuck they're called.
They're Jews.
They're
space Jews.
They're space Jews. But that's because in fantasy, which is an old genre, Jews have been the money, the
elves,
the merchants. You get it. That's a trope. And since Star Wars is just that in space, I understand why the merchant class, the money grubbing.
No, I totally do. But it's so lazy. Like, because the originals didn't really have that. They had, like, fun, quirky, it wasn't that bullshit.
And
then
Nazis.
It just kind of fell
Don't
into
forget
this.
the Nazis.
Well, the Nazis were. I mean, you can't not have Nazis. Every bad army is a Nazi army because you never It's never like, oh, the social capitalists are here to take over the world and they want to give everyone free healthcare, but the taxes are gonna be higher. like no one's like, oh yeah, that's an evil person.
You've
the
never
evil
read
people are the
Ayn
fascists.
Rand, apparently. You've never.
Yeah, well.
Just saying.
Well, no, but I mean, every army is going to be this fascist army that wants to take over and stop dissent.
Well, that's
and all
literally
that
a
bullshit.
product of post World War II.
Right, that's what I'm
media,
saying.
though,
I'm
so.
saying, right. What I'm saying is he doesn't have to take a knock for the Nazis.
No, I'm not
for
saying
a trope.
he should.
Right. He treated his fans like they were idiots. Like you do realize that like criticism is okay. It's fine.
I think, but okay, I can also understand his side of that, though, too, because criticism is one thing, but there are genuinely, I hate using the term, like, man-children, because I think...
there's man-children.
But there are genuinely, when you're talking about Star Wars, there are people who are like...
You took my childhood!
George Lucas ruined my childhood. No, he didn't. How shitty was your childhood that it was defined by a movie? I love Star Wars, but Jesus Christ, calm down.
Right.
Some people
and also,
take it too
by the
far.
way, the episode 3, the end of that's pretty much worth watching the prequels. You get your culmination, and Obi-Wan's a badass. I love Obi-Wan.
I don't like that fight at the end.
Ewan McGregor is fantastic.
Yeah, he's good.
Him and Liam Neeson are the only things I like about the prequels consistently. There are moments I really, for some reason, the pod racing, I don't like the pod racing. I like the sound effects from the pod racing, specifically Sebulba's. For some reason, it sticks in my head that it just all the time.
It's such a honestly, I'll give the prequels this. Some of the production design is genuinely awesome. The new ships they come up with, the design of Naboo and stuff is all really nice. It's just
the big problem with it though, it was very clean.
It is very clean, but again, you could argue this is pre-Empire. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I'm just saying
I think that's what they were probably going for thematically. Like, oh, it's not industry, but people still live there. Like even the slave quarters on was Tatooine or whatever. Like, come on, dude. They're pod racing slaves.
It's like the best description I've heard of it is basically watching the prequels is like it's like they filmed at Star Wars Land at Disney World. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like even the things that look dirty look meticulously dirty. Like you can tell someone went there and put the sand just where it needs to be, and it doesn't look real.
And the originals had this sort of like grit to them that I think was necessary to feel lived in.
Right.
Which made us really. I never felt in on any of the planets that we visit in the prequels, and I think that's the kind of thing. But Force Awakens brought that feeling back. I felt like we were like in these areas, and that's the feeling you want to get, like practical effects and set design. And
part of the problem with the prequels, which a lot of people say that a lot of the sets are CG, and a lot of them are, but there are actually miniature sets. But that's part of the problem too, is because the actors aren't actually on the sets; they shoot the miniatures. And then they composite it.
Screen.
Yeah. It takes you out. You can tell it's wrong. I don't know. And
you can really see it too. Like if you watch Phantom Menace again, watch the fight scene between them and Darth Maul, and you can see, because it's so dated, the green screen effects, you can see where it kind of it clips.
Yeah.
Ugh, it's not good.
I like the Force Awakens.
That scene's rad though.
And I like the Force Awakens lightsaber fights more than I like the ones in the prequels.
I like the Darth Maul one because it's Darth Maul, and if you know anything about EU stuff, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan have a very specific style, and I don't know what it's called, but they were pretty much the only Jedi that probably could have done that.
Right.
And Qui-Gon should have won, apparently. I need to get my buddy Mikey to talk about this if we ever want to have a real discussion, because he's a huge nerd about this. But apparently there's something about the fighting styles that's huge, and man. But I like that fight alone, because that was the first one. After that, like, we don't need any more. Darth Maul was like your acrobat, and we thought that was cool. And then you make everybody that, it kind of takes away from the Maul fight.
It feels like a stunt show a little bit. That's my criticism, is that it feels too clean. It feels too choreographed. It doesn't feel like they're actually fighting. It feels like they're going through a dance.
The Force Awakens sword fight, or the lightsaber fight, was fucking awesome.
Because it was anger.
It was physical.
Yeah. I liked it better, but anyway.
Yeah. If you don't come away from that liking the Kylo Ren fight, like, I just can't help you. You just don't like Star Wars enough at this point.
There's criticisms of The Force Awakens. I think we've given them before, but that's not one of them. Just saying.
No, definitely not. I'm looking forward to the next one, though. I'm really looking forward to Rogue One, and I will be going to see that December 16th when it comes out.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited.
I'm really hoping for more of a Saving Private Ryan situation.
Well,
like kind of a. I don't need it to be like 100% grit. Like it doesn't need to be the Dark Knight, but I do want it to be darker because we don't have like Han Solo, we don't have Chewie, we don't have the robots. You know what I mean? We're the droids. I'm sorry.
In the reel, from what I saw of one of the planets, it looks a little bit Vietnam-y, and I assume it's intentional visual symbolism. So I assume this
like
is sort
drop
of
ships and shit like that.
I assume it's going to be sort of the rebels are outclassed, they're outnumbered, they're in the jungle at least for part of it, and they're fighting off the Empire, and they're trying to get the data.
What planet are they? What planet are they on?
I don't know. I know at least part of it takes place on the rebel base,
Endor, is it?
But
Endor. Rebel base on Endor at the end.
Was that where it was? I don't even remember.
Yeah, the jungle moon of Endor.
It was in the third. It was.
That's what I'm saying. Like that one has the generator on it. Whatever. Anyways, could be, could not be. Actually, that wouldn't make sense because.
Don't they move there?
Because it seemed like they were reclaimed because they take it back from the Empire. Anyways, it could be anywhere. A jungle planet's fine. Whatever. I like how homogenous biomes are in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
This is the jungle planet. Okay. All right. Like Earth is the jungle planet.
Earth, honestly, would be the water planet. So let's be real.
Earth is the everything planet. That's the point. Planets are diverse. Anyways, that's a tangent that we don't need to talk about. But we do need to talk about the next topic.
Okay. Good segue. That was very natural. No one will even notice it. They'll be like, "Oh my god, they're talking about something new now. I didn't even notice they transitioned."
Job. Are you kidding me right now?
So clear.
I actually forgot the topic.
Oh.
Because I didn't have it in front of me. It was Dan Harmon, D&D show. Woo!
Yeah, Dan Harmon of Community and Rick and Morty fame. He's also going to be working on the new Mystery Science Theater 3000 reboot. Has just come out with this new show called Harmonquest, which, if you like D&D and Rick and Morty, or one or the other, honestly, you're going to love this show. The premise is...
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah.
We have to roll for initiative. I got a 17, and my natural initiative bonus is +4, so I'm at 21.
Okay, I don't have dice, so I'm going to assume you...
I get to go first then.
Okay.
Basically, it's just Dan Harmon and cast, and then they'll have one special star, like a co-star, to come on just for one episode, and then they have the Dungeon Master, who's hilarious. I don't know his name, but he's great. And it's in front of a live studio audience, and then they edit it down for time to give you a concise situation because they don't want to go over all the rules and shit all the time. And actually, only the Dungeon Master has die.
Yeah, later in the series, because I saw all of them. I binge watched the whole show, but Jake only watched the first one because it's actually on YouTube. I'll put a link in the comment or in the description so people can check it out because it's very funny.
I refuse.
Well,
I'm just kidding. It's there. There it is. Click it. Don't tell Hugo.
They address it later. Later, one of the guest stars actually is a big D&D guy, so he brings his own dice. He has a whole pouch full, like 50 different kinds of die, and he does his own. But yeah, everyone else I think it's for the sake of convenience, and they're making sure it goes quick. They
What kind of nerd would have a bag of dice?
Yeah. But for sake of convenience, the Dungeon Master does the rolling for everyone.
Yeah.
But it works out. It's very funny.
It does. So they overlap this, though, with animated sections, and they're fucking fantastic. And it literally made me... I don't often laugh aloud when watching, quote, funny things. Like Rick and Morty has maybe made me laugh out loud like twice. I laughed out loud like 3 times during this because it's all improvised. Because if you don't know what D&D is, basically, it takes place in what they call, the creators of the game call, the theater of the mind. So the Dungeon Master is responsible for describing the setting, describing, the weather, and down to very, very, very vivid details. Like you'll walk into a bar and he'll describe the smell in the bar and the sound of the pots in the back being cleaned by, some specific monster that you can see out of the corner of your... Like it's very... You're in it. When you have a good Dungeon Master, and this guy's really good.
He's great.
And Dan Harmon's there, and so of course he's wonderful when it comes to improv. And who was the episode 1 guest star? I can't remember his name.
I know him.
He's the guy with the bow tie. He's fucking great. You look that up while I rant about Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay, go for it.
And so they pick some characters, like there's a rogue and an elf and a barbarian, and you play in character. When you talk in character. It's an actual role playing game, and usually it's played with like a mat and pieces, and you kind of can strategize your battle strategy or whatever. They kind of play it a little bit looser for the sake of the show, which is cool as fuck. And so in episode 1, which I cannot stress enough, if you just like the fantasy genre and you've never played D&D, it's totally accessible. It's so funny, man. It's just so funny, and they make such hilarious jokes. And I've only ever heard of Dan Harmon and the guest star that they had on this one. Paul F. Tompkins is amazing, and he plays one of the guards for the town they start in, and man, you just have to watch it. I can't recommend it enough. Hugo forced me to watch it through intense peer pressure. I say that he tweeted me once and texted me once. That's a lot for him. Yeah, it's the first one's 23 minutes long, and it's just super funny. And I love the idea that they do this on stage.
Yeah,
I love that idea.
I don't think it would work if there weren't people there. If it was just a silent room, I don't think it would work. But as you only saw episode 1, I won't spoil anything. But as it goes on, the progression is hilarious because you can see the people forming their characters, and they have their own ideas of their characters in their head.
That totally. And by the way, that's so true to what Dungeons and Dragons actually is. It really, when you watch this. Yeah, they're all funny people, so it's funnier than usual. I personally play with 2 comedians. It's just like this, man. It's just like it. Like, I have a barbarian friend. Real name is Jim. And every time he does, we'll finish a battle or whatever, and if he's been in rage mode, he will go too far at the end. And one time he took a lizard person, and he grabbed them by the neck, and he made the rolls to successfully do this, and then he drowned him in front of his friends. And another time, he took a flying gorilla, and he gouged the gorilla's eyes out with his thumbs. And I'm a rogue, whose name is Hansel Solem, and so he accidentally became my Chewie, but really violent Chewie.
Okay.
Because he's not a human. He's not hairy either, but he's like a hard-skinned thing. I forgot the name of. And our dungeon master has us go find this artifact. I don't know what it was, an orb or some shit. And we go down into the dungeon, and we fight our way through, and then there's a manticore who is just this horrible beast, face of a man, head. The rest of the head's a lion, and then there's like a spiked scorpion tail, and there's fucking scales, and it's an awful creature.
Manticore is actually like the main villain of the. That's what
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. He talks about the manticore. Yeah, and they're semi-intelligent beasts. Most of them. Some of them are higher intelligence, but. So I go there, and he goes, "Who goes there?" And I was like, I looked at my stats, and I noticed my persuasion's pretty high. I'm a rogue, and I made him on Han Solo, so he should be able to talk himself out of situations. He was kind of the fun part. So I was like, can I tell him that we're just part of the Queen is the bad guy that he works for? Can I just tell him that we're part of the Red Queen's shit, and he'll just give me the thing? Can I persuade him? And my dungeon master's like, try it. So I rolled a natural 20, and we took that thing.
That's funny.
So yeah, no, it's so cool how you can make your own story. And so now imagine that with professional comedians, all of them, and there's a cast of them, and they have a rotating guest star. It's just hilarious. It's so good.
They're all good, and Dan Harmon is funny as you would imagine. Sometimes it's weird because sometimes you can feel the Rick and Morty writing coming out in him in the way he speaks. But the guest stars are by far my favorite part because it's almost, some of them are really experienced. Like the guy who brought the bag of dice, it was awesome because clearly he plays D&D all the time, heavily, and he clearly reads the manuals because he's doing all these very specific checks of certain things. Yeah. And he must have known where they were because his character was like a wood-dwelling being. I don't know what it is.
Sure.
And that episode took place in the woods, and he used this like natural nature knowledge ability to get them on the quest, and it was really neat. But sometimes the funnier ones, maybe the funniest one to me was Aubrey Plaza was the guest star, whom might know from Parks and Recreation.
She's great.
And she was on, and she has never like you could tell she has never, it's almost like she's never even heard of D&D before this. She was so bad, but it made it hilarious. Like her, and especially when it's coupled with the animation, because it doesn't come off as she's incompetent. It comes off as her character is just fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's great.
Awesome.
So, it reminded me of, there's I don't know what his name is. He's on the right of the screen, and he's the short dude, the short little ranger elf guy or whatever.
He's good.
In the first episode, he decides to run around the entire town to take 6 moves to get behind this batch of enemies, and then he finally does, and then he runs at them and tries to cut all of their Achilles tendons. And then they switch to animation, and he rolls like a 2, and you see him run by and nothing happens. And then they kind of switch the perspective and zoom in, and you see like, well, yeah, you ran by him and you misjudged the distance, and you just hung your blade out there and you missed him by like 2 inches. It was hilarious. It's that part I had to pause it. It was just so funny because that stuff happens in real D&D, and it's not that funny when it happens sometimes, unless you're like if you roll a natural 1, that's usually it's like the opposite of a critical, and bad shit happens. Actually, Paul F. Tompkins rolls a 1 in this and sets his own head on fire. Yeah. It was so funny seeing them, the way they animate it. The visual jokes benefit so much to the way this works. It's so fantastic. I'm really glad that Hugo made me watch it.
Yeah.
With his intense and unrelenting peer pressure.
I'm interested in, because they set it up for season 2. At the end of this quest, there is a stinger for the next quest. Sure. Basically, the dungeon master, you're gonna like end up, I know you already like him from the first episode. He's great. He's really, really great. His writing is awesome. And I don't know if he maybe writes it with Dan or anything, or if he does it completely on his own, but it's really good. So at the end there is a stinger for the next quest, but I'm not sure how season 2 is gonna go, because the barbarian woman,
yes,
that's actually Dan Harmon's wife. But
really?
Since they recorded this, they got divorced, so she's probably not coming back.
She was funny too, though.
Yeah. In fairness, I thought she was the least funny of them, just because I thought her character was a little, like, the other characters kind of develop. She's just pretty much barbarian the whole time, and the joke is that she has no diplomacy. She has literally her diplomacy is like 0 or something. So she'll do stupid stuff, but I don't know. It'll be interesting. It takes a long time to make these two with the animation, I would wager, and probably to get the guest stars and everything. So.
Well, a game session could take hours. I'm going to play tomorrow.
I'm curious how much they edit this down, because they make it very concise.
Oh, it's got to be a lot. It's got to be a lot. I imagine they're probably in studio for like 2 hours, because they're not doing anything super complex, it seems.
Right.
It's pretty short vignettes, and they're just kind of accelerating. Like the fact that they had so many hit points at the beginning, they probably started at like level 5 or 6.
Yeah,
which is not normal.
Something that I noticed, I'm the one thing I wish they would have done and put on the screen, at least in the animation, they never show you how many hit points the main characters have or the enemies. So when he says like, "Oh, you do 23 damage," sure. That's quite a bit of damage, because like the highest I think they ever hit for damage is 40 something in the whole game.
Right. That's in the first episode, right?
No, it's in the last episode. Or maybe they do.
In the first episode, Paul F. Tompkins gets pretty fucked up.
Well, I mean the heroes, whatever.
Oh, okay.
And everyone claps, but like I still don't know how much energy the enemy has now. I don't know how much HP they have. That's one thing. If they do a season 2, I want them to put that on the screen somewhere, or at least even when they just show 14 hit points, like just have a bar go down so you can kind of see. Also, I was never clear on how many hit points the heroes had either. So when like they got damaged for 20 points, you knew that was bad, but not how bad. So, I don't know. Overall, really good show. Very funny people. It just needs some tweaks maybe for season 2, and it would be perfect. Like, also, this is like online. This is on NBC's. It's on Amazon Prime, but also along with Amazon Prime, you need NBC's new streaming service, which is stupid. Put this on TV or put this on YouTube because it's way better than your shitty streaming service.
Did you don your pirate hat to get that?
No, I got the free month of that, so I could watch it, and I canceled it immediately. So
the first episode is available on YouTube, though.
Yes.
So yeah, if you want to check the clickety clack down in the description, it will be available.
Yeah, I didn't realize.
CISA.
Honestly, I didn't realize I wanted a fantasy show from the creators of Rick and Morty until I saw this. And honestly, it's kind of like that. It reminds me a lot of that. But I don't think it would work as well in just a strict narrative format because it is.
No, this is perfect.
Because it's playing it as D&D and they're creating the story as they go. It works amazingly. So funny. So I would definitely check that out if I were you, even if you're not necessarily involved in D&D. I'm not, but I like Rick and Morty and I like these people. So I found it very funny. So it's worth a watch. It's free. Check it out.
Yeah, and I hope it gets people into Dungeons & Dragons. This is my first time, and I couldn't be having more fun with it. It's honestly, it's a really good time. Of course, you're not going to be as lucky as I am and play with professional comedians, but you know.
So I think that's it for this episode. Not a ton happened this week. I feel like I've been saying that a couple weeks in a row. Not a lot's been happening. Comic-Con's coming up, though, so we're going to have a ton to talk about when that happens.
Looking forward to that. Also, we got some movies coming out. We're going to talk about Ghostbusters, definitely.
Yeah.
We don't know if we want to pirate hat that too, or if we want to actually go see it. I almost went the other day, but
the reviews are shockingly more than I expected. No, I haven't heard anyone say oh, it's great. But I've heard it was okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting.
Which okay, fine.
We're also gonna watch Star Trek, and then of course in August we have Suicide Squad. So we're gonna get some more movies coming up here. It'll be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it.
Thanks everyone. Until next time, I am Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
This has been Popular Culture. Also, there's links on the page. I forgot to talk about them, but
screw it.
Do that.
You guys can read.